I love simulation movies. The Matrix, Dark City, stuff like that. Love it. So when I saw a trailer for the movie Bliss, I thought it was right down my alley. How could it go wrong? I love this shit. And so I watched it, and I didn't love it. In fact, I hated it. Did I hate it as much as you hate my mustache? Probably not. The writer and director of Bliss is Mike Cahill. He's the brains behind Another Earth and I, Origins, so he's no stranger to sci-fi. Remember the red and blue pill scene from The Matrix? It's a very iconic scene. Well, imagine if someone took that same concept, twisted it into like some weird drug awareness type movie, and replaced Keanu Reeves with Owen Wilson. Wow. 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 And am I the only person on earth that knows about this movie? I haven't seen a single tweet about it. I follow like a billion people on YouTube that talk about movies, and nobody has uttered a single word about Bliss. So I'm starting to think I just kind of made it up in my mind. Was it a bad dream? I'm not sure. 1 second, I have to Google if this movie actually exists. So yeah, in this movie, Owen Wilson plays a man named Greg Whittle. He's been in a couple good movies, but then he also voiced Lightning McQueen from Cars.
Race cars don't need headlights because the track is always lit.
I'm telling you, no, wow, no.
Wow.
It's like a terrible impression. Across the board, this movie got pretty negative reviews. One of my favorite reviews is from someone over on Letterboxd. They said, when you order The Matrix from Wish. Amazing. The movie starts with Greg receiving a phone call from his daughter. She asks him if he'd want to come to a family dinner.
That'll be nice.
Well, I want you to come.
Does she want me to come?
I want you to come, Dad.
In this movie, Owen Wilson, or Greg, is very lazy at work. He works at an office named Technical Difficulties, and there's a scene where they just show a bunch of people answering the phone saying, "Hey, I'm sorry you're having technical difficulties. How can I help you?" I'm sorry you're having technical difficulties. And they're just saying that over and over again. It's supposed to create the illusion that this is all fake, because that's the big question in this movie. There's two worlds, and you're kind of trying to figure out which one is the real one. And since he works at this really stupid place called Technical Difficulties, it seems like this could very easily be inauthentic. So Greg is sitting there, he's like drawing pictures of the real world, because, you know, Greg's real. And in his subconscious, he knows what the real world looks like, and he draws it. And he does this instead of his work. So his boss calls him into his office and fires him.
You're fired.
In this simulation, Greg has a family, an ex-wife, a daughter, and a son, and his kids are all grown up. So he must have been in the simulation for a long time, right? Either that, or when he was plugged in, they just like made this family for him, and he just like kind of woke up drawing pictures of this world that he knows exists, but for whatever reason he forgot when he was put into the machine. Anyway, it gets a little bit crazier than this. So there's a lot to unpack in this movie, like a lot. So yeah, like I said, he's fired from his job. While he's in his boss's office, he spaces out for a second. His boss approaches him and says,
"This is the beginning of your new life."
Get it, guys? Because later in the movie, he literally wakes up and he's in another life, huh? Kind of clever. So Greg stands up super fast out of nowhere, I'm guessing because he's mad or something, and his boss goes flying backwards and hits his head and dies. So Greg hangs his body on a window and covers him with the curtain. Greg then runs away to a nearby bar. There's a strange woman there. This woman knows that she's in a simulation, but she doesn't recognize Greg. She tries to use her powers on him, but he deflects them because he's real.
You deflected my powers.
I'm sorry?
So yeah, if you're a real person and you know you're in the simulation, you can take some drugs and that will allow you to like manipulate the simulation, you know? Kind of like how they do it in The Matrix. But in this movie, it's not cohesive at all. It falls apart in every single way. So basically, most people in this simulation are artificial. So real people can manipulate them with powers. She calls Greg over and she shows him how her powers work. Basically, she can just use the Force. She then says, "You need an alibi, don't you?" And motions towards the body that's hanging there on the window.
You need an alibi. You? Interesting view.
Okay, so a moment before, she just said that she didn't recognize him.
I don't recognize you.
But somehow, miraculously, she knows that he just committed a crime, and she knows that he needs an alibi. How? How does she know about the murder that he literally just committed? Does she know everything about the world that they're in now because she knows she's real? They never explain that. She just knows somehow. Okay. She then tells him, your next step is very important. You don't want to spend the rest of your life in prison. But in this world, people can use blue magic crystals to wake up from the simulation. They just take this device and put it up their nose and somehow administer the stuff into their system and they wake up. So going to prison wouldn't be a problem at all. She could just use a drone, fly it over the prison's outdoor section when he's out there with some of those crystals and a device and lower it down into the prison, and he just takes it without any fear of repercussion because he won't be in that world anymore. And boom, he just wakes up. She then tells Greg that she needs his help to get a necklace from her ex-boyfriend who's in the bathroom. Greg responds, why don't you just use your powers on him? Yeah, for whatever reason, Greg instantly believes that she has powers. She demonstrates her powers by using them on a waiter. And any sane person would instantly think, oh, it's just some sort of like magic trick that they're pulling on me. She must know that person. This is set up. But no, Greg's like, oh, yep, she has the Force. She's a Jedi. She then says, I can't use my powers on him. He's real.
He's real, like you and I.
Keep saying real. What do you mean by real?
At this point, any normal person would get up and leave because this woman is clearly a Looney Tune, but not Greg. Nope, he likes her. He likes this weird shit that's happening right now, despite the fact that he'd be in a lot of distress because he just killed his boss. I wouldn't be in the mood to talk to anybody, let alone a random stranger that just did like a magic trick in front of me. No, I'm not having any of that. I'm not in a good mood, okay? But no, Greg's a weirdo, so he agrees to get her necklace for her. This necklace has a little capsule on it that holds some magical yellow crystals in it. So Greg goes to a bathroom and finds her ex-boyfriend conveniently passed out on the floor for some reason, and he just takes the necklace off of him and brings it to her. So she really didn't need his help, I guess. Remember like 2 minutes ago when she just knew somehow that Greg killed his boss? Well, I guess these powers don't work on her ex-boyfriend because she didn't know that he was passed out somehow. She tells Greg to steal her ex-boyfriend's wallet and take his money because drinks are on him. So Greg does that. This random woman tells him to steal money from another random person, and he just does it without asking any questions, without just getting up and leaving like any normal person would. Something is wrong with Greg. So they buy drinks with this random guy's money. This woman then spikes their drinks with these crystals and they drink together. This Greg guy is an absolute moron. Who knows what kind of drug you just took? She's clearly not very trustworthy because she asked you to steal money from her ex-boyfriend, but he just blindly trusts her for whatever reason. So they use their powers to manipulate their boss's body to fall out the window. And Greg's coworkers are on the street below the window and watch this happen. So Greg leaves the bar to check. His coworkers see him there.
What were you doing to the bar? I was just getting a snack.
Let's go.
So I mean, he's not really fired anymore, is he? If the last thing his boss did before he died was fire him, I'm guessing none of it is official. So he still has his job. He decides to keep spending time with this crazy woman. So they're both walking away from the crime scene. And Greg says, oh, I forgot my wallet. I can go back and get it. I'm innocent.
Forgot my wallet.
Forget about it.
I'm guessing he left his wallet in the office building because it wasn't at the bar. You never see him take it out when he gets there. So yeah, he left it at his office. He went to a bar without his wallet. I think this is okay because obviously he'd be in a lot of distress right now and forgetting his wallet could easily happen. But how did he start a tab at the bar? Does he just carry around credit cards without his wallet? He has his satchel thing, but not his wallet? What? So he's in the clear now, right? It looks as though his boss committed suicide, and there are many witnesses that saw him jump out the window. And there's people that saw Greg on street level when this happened. But for whatever reason, Greg still decides to follow this creepy insane woman. She tells him to lay low.
You have to lay low for a while.
But why? There's literally nothing on him. Also, laying low is the absolute worst thing he could do right now. That would make him look suspicious. What he should do is go back to work and start freaking out with everybody else. Be like, oh, I don't know how it happened. Oh, this is crazy. So this woman asks him if he has a phone. He does. So they go to an appliance store and somehow the suicide is already on the news. That was fast. It happened like 2 minutes ago. The body is still warm and they're already interviewing people at the office about it live on television. Obviously, a lot of this dumb stuff can be explained away, right? Because he's in a simulation. But later you'll see how that doesn't work. So Greg, you know, being an insane person, lets this random woman who clearly has some mental issues sell his phone for practically no money. So now he has no means of communication. He has no wallet. And 10 minutes ago, he took a drug from a complete stranger. There's something called common sense. Greg has none of it. Zero common sense. And the best part is, later on in the movie, when he wakes up and he enters the real world, he's supposedly this genius that created all these cool things.
You don't remember your baby? This is your invention.
I invented that?
Oh, it's like super popular.
You see how this makes no sense, right? It's not like his brain just changes to someone completely different when he enters this simulation. He's the same guy in both worlds. But you're gonna tell me he's a genius in one, but a completely moronic dumbass in the other? Why? Okay. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, and that's kind of easy to do when you're ranting about a movie like this. And it only gets worse. He then follows her home to her homeless drug den under a bridge. It's unbelievable. So when they get to her drug den, Greg says, I have to go, but I don't have my ID, key, or money because it's all in my wallet. Again, how did he pay for his drink then if he has no money? It just makes no sense. And if you go back to the scene at the bar, he literally says that he has money.
Drinks on him.
No, I got money.
Maybe this was before he realized he didn't have a wallet, even though 2 minutes beforehand, he ordered a drink and had no issue. Like he opened a tab without a wallet, without money. How do you do that? So instead of going back to his perfectly safe office to get his wallet, he decides to stay at this woman's drug den. The funniest part is that if you look at the situation from one of his co-workers' perspectives, you would notice that Greg just up and vanished, and he was the last person that his boss called into his office before committing suicide. So at least his boss's secretary would know this because she called him into the office. And the authorities would definitely talk to the secretary. If Greg had simply returned to the office, he could tell everybody that he wasn't fired, that his boss called him in to talk about something else business related. Vanishing was the last thing he should do, especially if his boss wrote anywhere that he had plans to fire Greg. At the very least, he must have written down somewhere that Greg was slacking. So it's not that big of a stretch to imagine the cops would want to talk to Greg, but they just don't. The cops would definitely want to talk to him if he just randomly vanished after his boss killed himself. But on the news, it's reported that there was no foul play. So let me get this straight. They just saw on the news that there was no foul play. So Greg is innocent. He could very easily still have his job. I mean, he did just kind of vanish that one day, but he could make an excuse, right? Just tell him you had explosive diarrhea or something, you know? But he should have no issue going back to his life beforehand, right? But he decides to stay with this woman, which obviously means he's a drug addict because she gave him a drug and now he's hooked again and he wants more. So he stays with her. If he wasn't a drug addict, he would not stay with her. So obviously this is the real world and he's a drug addict. And if that is the case, he made a lot of very dumb decisions. So I guess the cops that were investigating the suicide are brain dead, and he got extremely lucky. The crazy woman that's leading Greg around is named Isabel, by the way. So from now on, I'm going to be calling her Isabel. So Isabel shows Greg how to use his powers. They light some candles with their minds. So yeah, I guess if you were Greg, that would be kind of weird to see, right? Or maybe not, because you just took a drug earlier and you have no idea what you just took. So maybe you're just seeing shit, you know? Maybe that's what's happening. But no, these crystal things, they're just giving him powers. That's the obvious explanation. And that's not even putting into account that people can do a lot of crazy things if they put their mind to it. You ever see like the behind the scenes of Harry Potter and stuff like that? They do some crazy stuff to make magic appear real. So when you see something like this, any normal person would obviously question its authenticity. I like how just lighting some candles is the big like, whoa moment, you know? Why didn't she do something that really makes him go like, holy shit, that's clearly magic. Fly around on a magic carpet for a while with Greg, you know? Use your powers to do that. And fly like really high up. Because at that point, I think it'd be pretty clear that you're actually using magic, and that should be pretty easy, right? If she can manipulate anything in this simulation, you should do something crazier than just lighting some dumb candles. But you know Greg, after seeing these candles lit, magic. Only explanation. She then convinces him that the drawings he drew at work are of the real world. Also, he drew her because he knows in his subconscious that she's real and they know each other in the real world. But for whatever reason, he lost his memory. They never explained that. He just did. Whatever. Even though he's an established person in the real world, and there was definitely a time when he knew that this was all a simulation, he just lost his memory just randomly for no reason. They never explain it. Oh, cool. We then get a scene of Greg's kids talking about Greg.
We need to talk about Dad.
And how he's an absent father that's addicted to pills. So this introduces the big question, right? Is there really a simulation, or is Greg just a drug addict and he's seeing all this stuff happen? You know, is Isabel even real? The next scene shows Isabel and Greg in a rollerblade rink, and they start manipulating the people there that they don't like. There's even a part when Isabel convinces Greg to trip an elderly couple because one of them gave her a dirty look. There's like, oh, they're not real, so who cares? We can completely damage our sense of morality because it's all a computer program. It doesn't matter if this is 100% convincing. Let's just do whatever we want. That's normal. They aren't real, so who cares? They even unhinge a light from the ceiling and drop it into someone's face. Jesus. Greg's inhibitions just kind of vanished in an instant. The cops come and take them away and arrest them. Oh, so they can't use their powers on the cops because that would be bad. You know, you definitely want to use them on these random people that are rollerblading around you, but not on the cops that are trying to arrest you, because they could shoot you and then you'd wake up from the simulation and nothing would happen. But you could just use your powers and take their guns. What? So yeah, they get arrested. Whatever. Meanwhile, Greg's daughter searches for her dad. Greg finds himself deep in the underbelly of the drug world as Isabel acquires more crystals. So you can kind of imagine how he might be the one that's actually buying the crystals, but he's just like imagining Isabel doing it. I don't know. So Greg's daughter happens to find him standing on the side of the road. She begs him to go with her. He tells her that he's waiting for someone.
I'm just waiting for someone.
His daughter never actually interacts with Isabel, which kind of leads us to believe that Isabel might not be real. His daughter gives him her phone number and tells him to call her when he's ready. He definitely doesn't look like he's in a great state of mind right now, and he's in a terrible neighborhood. Force your dad into a cab. You finally found him. Who knows when you'll see him again? If he's definitely relapsing, it's a good idea to get him someplace safe. Call your brother, have him help you. But you're right, yeah, just leave him there. That's a good idea. Later, these thugs drive up next to Greg and Isabel. So Greg pops a ton of crystals and crushes the van with his magic. This next part is hilarious.
Guess what? I don't believe in you. I've never believed in you. How could someone believe you? Show me something.
Greg finally expresses his feelings to Isabel. He goes on a tirade about how he never believed her, how everything she's been spouting is rubbish. What? You have a strange way of showing that, Greg. By following her around like a lost puppy and going along with everything she said until now? What about the people you fucked up while you were rollerblading? What about that van you demolished with your mind? Oh, now you don't believe her. That makes sense. Since Greg is freaking out, Isabel finds it's an appropriate time to tell him about the blue crystals. Not the yellow crystals, but the blue one. Kind of like the red and blue pill from the Matrix. Wow, creativity. Then again, one thing being similar to another thing doesn't inherently make it bad. So she tells him that if you take 10 of these blue crystals, you exit the simulation, and you take them by inhaling them through this device that goes up your nose. Not really sure how that works. It's some strange like futuristic tech, I guess. And Greg, you know, being Greg, he instantly believes her. Again! He takes it, shoves up his nose with hardly any hesitation, and he's like, hey, you only live once, right? Let's go. Dear Lord. This is really funny because 2 minutes ago, Isabel started freaking out because she was getting sucked into the illusion of the simulation. But she has access to these blue crystals that will just wake them up? Why would you freak out then? Just take the blue crystals. So yeah, they inhale the crystal dust, I guess, and they wake up from the simulation. Wow. And there's this like brain aquarium in front of them, like a bunch of brains floating in water. This is how they made the simulation, by putting a bunch of brains in water. All right, well, you heard that, Elon Musk. Greg seems very confused. He doesn't remember his surroundings. Isabel, on the other hand, wakes up as if she just took an afternoon nap. Later, Greg voices this concern, and Isabel just says, don't worry about it. Sometimes that happens.
Why am I not remembering any of this?
Don't worry about it.
That's the explanation you're gonna give us? Oh, don't worry, that just happens sometimes, you know, just random amnesia. In the future, they call fake people FGPs.
What's a FGP?
For fake generated person. Fake generated person sounds super childish. It's not an acronym that I think these geniuses would come up with, but yeah, sure. So Greg spots his daughter on a screen that shows her as an FGP. They walk outside together to reveal the world of the future. In the future, they are a couple. So remember when Isabel was in the bar and she didn't remember Greg when she saw him, but they're a couple in the real world? But when she woke up in the real world, she wasn't confused at all. She was like, oh yeah, I remember all this. How does that make any sense? But she never mentioned that once when they were in the simulation. Why wouldn't she mention that? And why did Greg forget everything? Literally everything? I'm willing to accept that it affects everybody differently, but still, he doesn't remember anything? I know he was like drawing pictures and stuff, but what? I like how Greg stared at the image of his daughter for 2 seconds and then instantly forgets he had a family in the simulation. Granted, there are a couple scenes throughout the film when he like shows emotion towards his daughter, but not once does he mention his son. His son doesn't even exist to him. When he talks to his daughter throughout the film, he never once asks about him. Did he forget that he had a son? I mean, there was a picture of his family at his office, and his son was in the picture, and Greg just woke up from a simulation, and he's not freaking out. That's so weird. Everything you knew was a lie, and you're not freaking out. Your daughter that you love to death is not real. Your ex-wife, not real. Your son, I mean, you don't care about your son. Who gives a fuck about him? But they're not real. Nothing was real. The friends you made, which I guess there are none of, he doesn't have any friends. But yeah, they're not real. His extended family isn't real. What about his parents in this simulated world? What about them? I guess they don't exist. Wouldn't that be kind of jarring mentally? It would take some processing. In The Matrix, when Neo woke up, he vomited. He struggled for a long time trying to wrestle with this new reality. But Greg, nope, he's fine. He's fine. Now, I know it's not the same, right? In The Matrix, Neo was always hooked up to the Matrix. In this movie, Greg wasn't always hooked up to this thing. I'm guessing if the futuristic world is the real world, then his family in the computer was just generated for him. That would kind of answer the question why he's so detached from his family and all the people in the simulation. But then later in the movie, they flip it on its head again. He all of a sudden loves his daughter now, and he wants to be in this dismal drug world. I don't get it. Okay, I don't get it. It's very confusing. In an attempt to jog his memory, Isabel brings out one of his inventions.
Yes!
You know how he's some genius in this world. It's called the thought visualizer. Basically, you say something to it and it animates what you're thinking. It makes no sense. So this is what I think of this movie. Bliss. Yeah. That's accurate. Okay, we're about to get kind of deep here. In this movie's version of the future, humanity has entered this state of utopia. Isabel explains how synthetic biology and asteroid mining made the Earth 100% sustainable, which again makes no sense. So there's this random guy who got a shit ton of wealth from asteroid mining.
Asteroid mining.
He's basically the Mr. Beast of the future, and he gives a lot of it away. So much of it away that every single person gets a base 500K a year. And this is in the future, so robots do all the laborious work. So everyone else can spend their time doing what they love, like art and science and stuff like that.
The guy that had the company for the asteroid mining?
That guy.
Yeah.
What the hell?
That guy.
Oh my God. He sounds like a 3-year-old.
He just started giving all this free money away. I mean, every single person here gets a base of 500,000K a year.
Okay, so there would be far less jobs in the future, but I guess if everybody had 500K, then a lot of people wouldn't work. They would just be like playing video games all the time. Also, do you know how much money this guy would have to give everybody $500,000? An unquantifiable amount of money. Like, it's just, you can't even picture it. It's so huge. And that's ignoring the fact that if everybody was wealthy, nobody would be wealthy anymore. If everybody had $500,000, then the value of the dollar would plummet. This would cause an economic crash. Inflation would go through the roof, and living standards would increase dramatically across the board. But I guess all these issues were fixed with asteroid mining and synthetic biology. All of the world's problems, except for one: depression. Depression lingers on, people. So Isabel has an answer for this. The brain box. Because you need to experience the bad to appreciate the good. And since all these people are living in this paradise all the time, they can never experience bad things. And so they never appreciate the good things, right? That's how that works, right? I mean, I get it to some degree. Like, if you live a life of luxury all the time, you take a lot of it for granted. But still, it's such a childish way of putting it. So yeah, the brain box is a way for someone to go back in time when the world was pretty shitty, and you can experience the world as it was. And so when you exit the brain box, you really appreciate the world around you. But there's one small problem. It gives you amnesia. Whatever. I mean, it's already hard to believe that we would solve most of the world's problems, but not have created a simulated reality? How does that make any sense? In this future, people are walking around as holograms, but they haven't created a simulated reality yet? Oh my God. Yeah, Isabel, this random woman that harvests brains, I guess, and puts them in water. She's the one that figured out how to do it. So they're talking about how they have to go back into the simulation, but Greg's like, oh, let's stay here for a little bit longer. Give me a few more bites of that apple. It's very clever because of, like, religion. You get it? And the apple could symbolize drugs. He just wants one more bite, that's all he needs.
But you can't just give me a bite of an apple and then
My contribution
show it
to
and
the
then
world.
take
I
it away.
already
Give me
messed
another,
up.
give me another
I
couple
already
bites.
You always hear that with drug addicts. Just one more hit. So yeah, the futuristic world makes no sense. So the only logical explanation is that Greg is a drug addict and all of this is in his mind. So yeah, in this future world, Bill Nye comes out of nowhere, and guess what? He plays a science guy.
Dr. Clemens.
Doctor.
It's so good to see you.
Isabel and Greg attend this party, and a lot of Isabel's constituents have doubts about the brain box. So she holds a presentation to show everyone how the brain box will alter your perspective. So she brings Greg up on stage, and she asks him questions like, how do you feel? And he responds in a warm, kindly manner.
I feel great. I'm happy to be here.
She then plays a recording of her asking him the same questions before he entered the brain box.
How do you feel right now?
And obviously he's responding in a cold and abrasive way. And this is supposed to prove the effectiveness of the brain box. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. Buckle up. 1, how does the audience know that this wasn't set up? They could easily fake this. 2, why would you need an incredible piece of virtual technology to experience bad things in order to appreciate the good things? How the hell is the entire Earth prosperous and perfect, and there's no other way for them to remember how shitty it was? Not to mention, movies can do the same thing. You watch a movie about someone who's in a shitty position, and it makes you feel better about your life. Documentaries can do this even better. Number 3, how is it possible for you to not experience bad things in the real world? You have to go into a VR to do this? Try living off the land for a month. Go to a therapist. 4, she could have just recorded him on an off day, and right now, he's feeling fine. She would get the exact same results. 5, relying on a piece of tech like this to appreciate what you have, I think would be kind of damaging psychologically. And that's not even taking into account that one of its side effects is amnesia. And it's probably a pretty high likelihood since there was only like 8 people, maybe less, that entered the brain box. And Isabel and Greg both showed some signs of amnesia. Even if every single other person didn't experience amnesia, that's still a 25% chance that you'd suffer from amnesia if you went in this brain box. And I'm assuming it would be a lot more expensive. Isabel then asks him if he feels like he's lacking anything in life. And then he sees a ghostly version of his daughter. And this is when the movie hammers home that he's definitely on drugs. And nobody else can see her. Oh, so now he can't help but think of his kids. Who were they? I don't know. Who cares? You know? But now, hey, I want to see my daughter again, even though I think she's just a computer program. After the presentation, Isabel is showered with praise by Bill Nye.
Well, you proved everybody wrong.
Thank you so much.
For God knows what reason. That was a terrible presentation. Everybody should have been booing her. She should have had rotten fruit thrown at her for wasting everybody's time. In a different room, Greg then sees his daughter's apparition walking up some stairs, and so he chases after her. Suddenly, her ghostly appearance vanishes, and she's speaking to him as if she just found him all fucked up on drugs. She then tries to jog his memory by reminiscing with him about a time when she was younger. Then she vanishes, and a bunch of weird stuff starts to happen. Like the two realities start to merge into each other, and the party erupts into a huge fight. Greg swallows one of the yellow crystals and manipulates the real world now. So obviously Mike Cahill is trying to get the viewer to question, which world is the real world? Is it the future? Is it the simulation? Is it in the brain box? Obviously, he's on drugs. That's the only explanation. There's no way the future is real. This entire movie's premise falls apart because it's trying to give you this thought-provoking experience, How is Greg supposed to know which world is the real one? But when you introduce something like drugs that can manipulate your perspective, it makes it extremely easy for the world where you're a drug addict to seem like the real one. Especially when you make the futuristic world so stupid and you put in a scene where the drug addict simulated world is reaching into the futuristic. It makes the futuristic world way less of a viable option as the reality. So then the movie just turns into dumbass drug addict makes some really stupid decisions and he gets extremely lucky because his boss just happened to fall out the window. So yeah, at the end of the movie, Greg and Isabel jack themselves back into the brain box. In order to stop all this chaos from happening, they have to ingest some more blue crystals and it will make everything right again. And the blue crystals are only in the brain box. So then Greg finds out that his boss never actually died.
What are you doing alive? I saw you fall out the window. He jumped out the window. You saw it too.
He's alive and well. Okay, so that makes no sense then. So did he just imagine his boss dying and then he left? Because he wasn't high on drugs when he went into his boss's office. So I'm not really sure how they can explain away that one. And get this. Now, no amnesia. They jack themselves into the brain box, no amnesia. They know who they are. They know what's happening. Convenient. Greg and Isabel find someone named Kendo.
Dr. Clemens!
Kendo.
Apparently he's a real person. He supplies the blue crystals. Isabel shoots him for practically no reason. She says that she thought he was going for a gun, but why? Why would he go for a gun? He even calls her Dr. Clemens. So either she's a doctor that fell into a drug addiction, or she's an insane person and wanted to take a risk and kill one of the people that's working with her and have him wake up from the simulation. And Greg goes, "Oh my God, you shot him. Why'd you do that?" And Isabel says, "Oh, he'll be fine. He's real. He'll just wake up with a tummy ache." I'm starting to think that Greg is just making all of this up in his mind. That's the only thing that would kind of make sense. Kind of. When Isabel unloads the revolver on Kendo, she tosses it to the ground and checks Kendo's back left pocket for blue crystals. When she appears in the next frame, she's holding the revolver again. Yep. It's all in Greg's mind. So they get back to the tent with the blue crystals. But no, they don't have enough for the both of them. So Greg tells her to crush the skull to wake him up.
Just crush my skull.
And she's like, "Oh no, what if it doesn't work? What if you just die?"
That's bullshit. I'm not gonna do that. What if it doesn't work?
But you weren't worried about that when you shot Kendo. I guess you just don't give a shit about Kendo. F's in the chat for Kendo. I love how Greg isn't conflicted at all about which world is the real one. He's just like, yeah, just smash my head with a rock. I'll just wake up and everything will be fine. I guess he just forgot about that part when he was running to the brain box and the two worlds were like colliding into each other. Yeah, that's totally something that would happen in the real world. Greg then spouts some bullshit about how their predicament is beautiful. He's like trying to be profound, but it sounds so stupid. He then tells Isabel that he wants to stay in this world because he looked at a picture of his daughter and he randomly cares about her again. So I guess now he wants to be in this world. So Isabel distracts the cops so Greg can escape. She then puts the device into her nose and goes back to the future. Wait, so these cops were just circling nothing then? Obviously, if she was made up, then these cops would be searching for just him, right? If he's imagining her, then I guess he's imagining the cops that are surrounding her too? How much is in his mind? Everything? I guess everything. Like most of the people that Greg encounters, they're all in his brain. I'm convinced that neither world is real and he's just in a coma somewhere and all this is just happening in his mind. That would have been the best way to end this movie. The last scene should have just been him sitting on a hospital bed in a comatose state. That should have been the last scene because then it would kind of make sense, you know? So Greg runs away and he enters a rehab clinic because the movie's still trying to convince us that he's just a druggie and that a lot of this stuff obviously can't make sense and doesn't make sense, but whatever. I think Mike Cahill failed to make a thought-provoking simulation movie and instead made this weird like drug awareness movie with like a sci-fi twist. I would have liked it more if you could draw more parallels between the two worlds instead of the movie trying to trick the audience the entire time into thinking his family is a bunch of NPCs or if he's just imagining Isabel. So yeah, the last scene is with him talking to his daughter because if it were me, I would definitely choose the world where I'm a drug addict and I was fired from my job and I killed someone because I love my daughter, even though previous scenes depicted otherwise. I'm gonna choose this world, the shitty world, not the superior world in every single way. But I guess that's what drugs do, right? It's like a sense of euphoria. Everything is amazing. So maybe that's what they're trying to do. And the end of this movie is him acknowledging that he should stop taking drugs. But if this simulation is real, which it obviously isn't, but if it is, why couldn't Isabel just go back into the brain box, find Greg, and give him more blue crystals? You know, if he wanted to go back, it'd be very easy. Granted, Isabel does have some issues with Kendo right now in the real world. Throughout this movie, they have a lot of issues finding these blue crystals. Shouldn't they be in a very obvious spot and everywhere so it's easy for them to get out of the simulation? What kind of an idiot would create this thing and give the people who use it a very difficult way of exiting? What? In the Matrix, they used phone booths and they were all over the place. This movie wasn't entirely terrible. I really liked how the two different worlds looked. The futuristic real world was super bright and warm looking. It seemed like you definitely want to live there. And the depressing simulated brain box world was all gray and dead looking. So yeah, it's a very pretty movie and the cinematography is decent. It's just an incoherent mess. And I'm sure there's a bunch of things I didn't touch on. I've been ranting about this movie for so long my throat hurts. I've even forgotten about my mustache. Jesus Christ, this movie's giving me amnesia. What movie? If you like cool clothes, go to alienclothing.com and get this shirt. It's awesome. A lot of products are selling out, so if you want something, go over there and get something quick. And don't forget to check out my second channel, Alien Bacon. Bionic Pig and I have been uploading a lot over there, and the videos are very fun, and I think you'll like them. And let me know in the comment section down below what I should review next. And I'll see you guys in the... Where am I?